And a very happy Thursday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, The John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, there are elderly residents in the North Bay that are getting really sick and tired of their incredibly skyrocketing PG&E bills that they're just deciding to sit in the cold in their apartments.
We're old, we're cold.
Well, she could be mayor of L.A.
We're old, we're cold.
You heard it right here. PG&E hates old people.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Before we get to the California news of the day, last night there was a tragic situation in the nation's capital where a commercial airline jet, a CRJ, was flying from the state of Kansas to Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., and as the plane was preparing to land on one of the runways there at the airport, it was struck by a military helicopter. And it was all caught on videotape. I don't know if you've seen any of the tapes that have been made public, but people from dash cams, people who were recording the sky from the ground. Now, in the world that we live in today, everything is recorded everywhere. So, of course, you have the crash from 9,000 different angles where the helicopter appeared to fly directly into the side of the plane as the plane was landing. All of the people on board both of the aircrafts have died, and the airplane ended up landing in the river right next to the airport there. If you've ever flown into Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., you know that it's one of these landings where you go over the river before you hit the runway. It's like John Wayne Airport in Orange County, if you've ever flown into or out of that particular airport, where it's known for having a very short runway. So it's one of these runways where when the plane lands, they just throw on the brakes right away because you don't really have a lot of room to deal with. Some airports have very long runways. Denver Airport in the state of Colorado, among them, DIA is the official code for it. But Reagan Airport is not one of those airports. And I'll tell you, it is an accident that raises more questions than answers. Why in the world would a military helicopter fly directly into the side of a commercial airline plane right before they were landing? The other question that pops up is, why would they be given permission to be flying perpendicular to a runway when planes are taking off and landing? Wouldn't you assume, especially in the nation's capital, where you have very sensitive places like the White House, the Capitol building, where Congress meets, the Supreme Court meets there, you've got the Pentagon, you've got all kinds of military personnel, all kinds of dignitaries. That is a place where you want to keep tabs over the commercial airspace. You want to make sure that no one is flying where they're not supposed to be flying. Look at what happened in New Jersey, the big controversy with the drones, because God knows what information they were picking up and sending all around the globe to maybe governments that aren't friendly to us. And people went bonkers over that. Well, if we're going to get all worked up over drones, then why aren't we getting worked up over helicopters that are flying perpendicular to runways where you have a lot of planes with people on them taking off and landing? So right now, there is an investigation that is underway, as there always is whenever there's a plane crash that takes place. This is the first one, by the way, in a very long time. Commercial air flight is very safe right now, where these crashes happen very infrequently. This one, obviously, was not a mechanical failure. It wasn't like what we experienced with the 737 MAX, when those planes had a design flaw and they were crashing. Thankfully, that did not happen here in the United States. It happened in various international destinations, but not here. That did not happen here. This was not a mechanical failure on the part of the airplane. This is obviously some kind of human error. And whether it was gross negligence from the cockpit of the helicopter or the air traffic controllers that gave them permission to go someplace where they shouldn't have been? I don't know. I assume they'll be able to figure out just exactly what happened, but just a complete and total tragedy taking place in Washington, D.C. We're going to be keeping an eye on that and bring you more information as it becomes available. But first, there are unmanned cars that are on the road here in California. I know when we were in San Francisco, I took one of those cars to get from point A to point B in place of an Uber. But, Randy, they're coming down to Southern California, and they might not just be on the city streets. They might be on the freeways, too.
If you've been in downtown L.A., Culver City, or Santa Monica, you have probably seen the Waymos. They're usually like a small electric SUV that's got some big circle thing on top that's spinning around. That's the radar. Currently, they have a pretty small footprint in L.A. where they can go from pretty much Culver to downtown in like a 70-mile radius. They don't go to the Valley yet. They don't go to Long Beach yet. They don't go to Orange County. But today, they're now starting to test those Waymos on the freeway with, L.A. drivers.
And, of course, this is leading a lot of people to say, I don't know if I would be willing to go in one of those.
I will say I have been in one of those in San Francisco multiple times, and I felt very safe. I never was going very fast because you don't go fast at all anywhere in San Francisco. At one point, we were in Chinatown, and the Waymo doesn't know how to cut around a bicyclist, so we're just trailing the bicyclist. So that was fun, but I always felt safe. On an LA freeway, I don't know, because I see how those people drive every day.
Here's what I figure. It couldn't be any worse than me behind the wheel.
I have the same opinion. For more, here's KTLA.
Hey, everyone. Hey, good morning, Frank. Get ready to see something new. Yes, Waymo is going to be testing out its fleet of driverless robo-taxis on our freeways, and that includes this 110 freeway here right behind me, the 10, the 90, and the 405, and that's all happening.
The 405? Oh, no.
Boy, they're really starting out at the deep end.
And a lot of this technology, it has sensors to make sure that it doesn't hit anything and it stops if like a person walks in front of it. But, I think there's AI involved as well. What happens when the robo-taxis start getting angry and get road rage?
Do they do that?
They could.
The 10, the 90, and the 405, and that's all happening this week. Take a look here. Of course, we know this is a huge step for Waymo, the company that's owned by Alphabet, in its quest to cut down on trip times and better serve riders in its 79 square mile service area amid competition with Uber, Lyft, and other human-powered services. The company said utilizing freeways would make some trips 50% faster.
It would also be nice if they went to the Valley at this point, but I guess that's going to take a while.
They want to get to the destination quickly and efficiently. They're a lot safer than anything else on the road.
Especially that guy.
Is his mouth full? They always like to get the man on the streets taking a diner, but let him swallow his eggs.
They're a lot safer than anything else on the road because they have 3 different methods of identifying problems on the road.
You don't say.
Well, we got one happy customer.
The driverless white vehicles with radar gizmos attached to the roof and sides have already been ferrying riders on city streets across the area from Santa Monica to downtown L.A. It claims, actually,
it really is one path that you can take. If you're in the west side, you need to go to downtown, you can use it. But it does not go to nearly enough places yet to where it is usable for the general public in Southern California. It's not anywhere in Orange County yet, although they did just start in San Diego.
They have them in Phoenix, too. When I went out there for the Fiesta Bowl this year, that's what I took.
The self-driving cars have been shown to be safer than human-driven vehicles, but data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration shows that the number of collisions reported by Waymo in the last 6 months has grown by roughly 60%. That goes in hand with the service's growing popularity.
And there has been accidents from what I've read about that, so I feel safe.
Yeah, but are those the Waymo hitting somebody or somebody slamming into the Waymo?
Yeah, they didn't really clarify, did they?
And there has been accidents from what I've read about that. So I feel safe in some areas using them, but not in others. At this point, I still don't trust the technology. It's a little more questionable without that driver in the car. And this morning, I had a car, somebody just slammed on the brakes in front of me. I just don't know if the car is able to respond that quickly because it was such a last-second thing.
It'll respond quicker than you, buddy. Again, I see these people on the freeway. Nobody is staring at the road. They're all staring at their phones. I'm surprised there isn't a rear ending every 10 seconds.
I'll tell you this about the Waymo. It's not that you're worried that they're going to slam into the car in front of you. They seem to be pretty on top of that, and they can slam on the brakes, I think, probably faster than a human can. What worried me, if anything, was when you're leaving a stoplight, and if you're the first car there and the Waymo hits the gas, it doesn't gradually increase to the speed limit. You go from sitting there in park to whatever the maximum speed limit is, lickety-split.
Oh, yeah, all electric cars are like that. You take off like a rocket.
Who would want to trust AI or a driverless car or anything like that? I mean, yeah, you want, eyes on the road.
We don't have that now.
No.
Joining me live now is CHP Officer Roberto Gomez. Thank you for joining us this morning. We know that drivers should be treating this Waymo taxis on the freeways normally, right? CHP is going to be doing that too.
Exactly. It's going to be a little awkward encountering a vehicle of this sort with no driver or nobody in the vehicle at all.
Who you give the finger to?
So I think just treat it as another vehicle right next to you.
A common question I got on social media this morning from our viewers is what happens if I get on a crash with one of these vehicles on the freeway?
Right. So what we understand, if something does happen of that sort, is don't leave the scene.
Don't hit and run the Waymo.
Good advice.
Very good advice.
The vehicle should roll down its windows, and then somebody should be contacting you via the vehicle, and they're also going to be sending a representative out. So more than anything, it's just like a regular crash. Something does happen, it's staying on scene, and then resolving whatever the incident that occurred.
Once again, don't flee. They've got cameras everywhere. You will be caught.
I don't know what I would do if I got involved in an accident with a car with no driver. So what? You slam into the Waymo, and then you pull over to the side of the road, and what, you're supposed to call Res? Get on the phone, call some guy in the Philippines, and say, hey, I think I hit one of your cars?
Information there, Roberto. Really quickly, would you ride one of these robo-taxis on the freeway?
I think it's personal preference, but more than anything, if you're not going to drink and drive, then hey, use whatever options that you need to use.
The message. Thank you, Roberto. He said personal preference. Frank and Jessica, I say, why not? Send it back to you.
There you go. There's the latest on Waymos entering the freeways, at least just in the downtown LA and Santa Monica areas.
I think I told you, I read the Elon Musk biography, and basically the takeaway on the subject of Teslas and electric cars is that at a certain point, they're all going to be driverless. Even cars that you buy for your own personal use, they're going to be driverless. That's where we're going, and based on my understanding, I don't think we're that far away.
I mean, the technology's coming here. The problem is integrating it with the system of all the human drivers who are terrible at it. If you had a system where every single car on the road was automated, you might have a system where there's no accidents. And also, if you just have a constant fleet of these taxis, there's a lot of people that might not need to own a car.
Sure, and what his plan is to essentially put a lot of the traffic underground. So if you're going somewhere, you're not driving the car, and you can use the space on land, on the surface of the land, I guess I should say, for purposes other than roads.
Well, I'll believe that one when he actually digs that tunnel under the 405 that he promised 10 years ago.
Isn't he doing one in Vegas, too?
Yes, but I think it goes from like one hotel to Resorts World, and that's it.
Oh, no. I guess that works if you're there to see Barry Manilow. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to a past episode and you want to hear about one of your favorites, maybe it's The Fake Doctor or Shang Tao or George Gascon, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcast, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
Right.
You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app.
Absolutely.
Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station. And download all the podcasts.
How crazy is that?
And Randy, next week, we're going on the road to the OC.
We're coming to Orange County, everyone. So if you're anywhere near Santa Ana next Friday, we want to see you. Come see Johnny and I broadcast live from noon to 3, Friday the 7th at Rove, Santa Ana. Rove, Santa Ana is a full-service EV charging station with 40 ultra-fast EV chargers, a 24/7 lounge with restrooms and free Wi-Fi, a car wash, and a premium convenience store recharged by Gelson's. We're going to have free samples from vendors and barbecuing going on, so come hungry as we broadcast live. Plenty of parking for non-EVs as well. Rove and Recharge by Gelson's are located at 1008 East 17th Street in Santa Ana, off the 5 at the corner of East 17th and Lincoln. We'll see you live Friday the 7th.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes the Totally Tubular Festival, dude, with Right Said Fred, Men Without Hats, The Motels, and many more at the YouTube Theater on June 30th. Tickets are on sale Friday at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. You're going to have a fantastic time. Right, Barbara Ferrer?
The evidence is like crystal clear on that.
Coming up next, we've got an update for you on a story that we brought you earlier in the week. We told you that a school had all of the copper wiring stolen from it, which left the school without power. Are the lights at the school back on and is school back in session? Earlier in the week, we told you about a school that had all of the copper wire taken out of the property. When you remove the copper wire, sometimes you end up in the dark. And that's what happened to the school, which is why they canceled on-campus instruction. They were hoping to get everything fixed and bring the kids back into the classrooms. Randy, we have an update.
And, of course, this takes place in our new favorite town, Vallejo.
What are some of your concerns?
Crime.
The Oakland of Solano County.
Our target was set on fire.
For more on the Vallejo School that is still without power, thanks to the copper wire thieving, here's KGO.
After days without school because of a massive copper wire theft, more than 200 kids were back in class today. Kind of. Vallejo's.
That is good timing. I got to play that again.
After days without school because of a massive copper wire theft, more than 200 kids were back in class today. Kind of.
I wonder what that means. Are they doing instruction outdoors?
Vallejo City Unified opened up backup campuses today for those students as they rush to repair the school's electrical system. This weekend's theft at Solano Wiedemann Leadership Academy took out the power, leaving more than 600 elementary and middle schoolers in the dark. ABC 7 News reporter J.R. Stone looks at how close they are to getting that school back open and how families are doing in the meantime.
The fact that this is taking forever and is going to cost a ridiculous amount of money means we have to actually figure out the root cause of this problem and start taking these copper wire thieves and putting them in prison.
At what point do you not start throwing the book at these people? Look at how much damage they caused in this community. All of the learning that's not going on, all of the child care issues that have popped up, the cost to the taxpayers in that community to replace all of this. These guys need to be punished.
And unlike, when you steal a laptop and you can send it to be sold in Vietnam if you want, we've seen stories about that. This is heavy equipment. This has to be recycled and smelted somewhere. So how do we not have a giant magnifying glass on every single recycling center in the state at this point? Because somebody is melting all this copper and reselling it back to the counties.
All of the criminals are doing what they're doing, but all the recycling centers rely on government licenses to be operational. Well, if you rely on a government license to be operational, that's someone you can lean on.
A welcome sign for students outside this Vallejo school, since some of the kids now going there are still unable to go to their school that you see here because of copper thieves.
So now they have to go to a different school.
Seems about right, until they steal the copper from that school.
2 days was a little bit tough on me because Monday and Tuesday, they didn't have school.
Yep.
But it worked out.
That's Malia Castro. She has 3 kids who usually would go to school at Solano Wiedemann Leadership Academy in Vallejo. Thieves stole a massive amount of copper there late Friday night.
Those thieves were showing a lot of leadership.
Oh, yes. And so was the recycling facility.
Thieves stole a massive amount of copper there late Friday night into early Saturday morning. So much copper that there is now no electricity. Castro described her kids' initial reaction
exactly
and then
happened.
hers.
And they're like, somebody robbed our school. And
Even the schools are getting robbed, like the smoke shops.
somebody robbed our school.
Boy, I am just getting all kinds of Vallejo drops this week.
Somebody robbed our school.
Add it to the list.
Our target was set on fire.
Somebody robbed our school.
What are some of your concerns?
Crime.
That's still the best one.
Somebody robbed our school. And, they play Roblox, so they know about, like, those kind of stuff. I started crying the other day because I felt that feeling of, like, the pandemic again.
Yeah.
You know how, like, it's like it's out of your control and you just have to do what you have to do.
But after just 2 days of no school, kids can now go to a learning hub at one of 6 other schools in the district.
Come to the bungalows. There's no heating, but you'll try to learn.
Okay, this means they're just being warehoused so they get the money.
Of course. They don't get paid if the kids stay home.
Or can get a packet of assignments and learn from home.
A primary grade teacher and a middle school or upper grade teacher are joining forces. Classes, for instance, at Loma Vista has the most students on that campus.
This isn't like the school burned down or it was hit by a tornado or anything like that. Jackasses stole all the power.
They stole the power. They stole the copper wire. And we don't have the ability to replace it and get the school operational again in a reasonable amount of time.
And once you replace it, what stops them from stealing it again?
Because they are directly adjacent to Solano Wiedemann.
We asked Vallejo City Unified Assistant Superintendent Heather Topacio when kids might be able to go back to school there.
And it was a significant hit to our system. I can't confirm a date yet, but we are confident that
they can't afford the copper.
No, they can't.
Because guess who also is raising the price on copper and other precious metals? The same recyclers that are probably smelting the stolen goods.
And they know that if they replace it one time, it's not going to be over. It's just going to be stolen again, and they're going to have to budget to replace it a second time and a third time and maybe more than that.
And it was a significant hit to our system. I can't confirm a date yet, but we are confident that we'll be back to serving our kids and families really soon.
That's not a timeline.
No, this is like with the fires when you're going to be able to rebuild.
And while Castro applauds the quick actions of the district,
For the school.
No, you don't get to pat yourselves on the back. Where was the security?
No, this is a failure across the board, and they want to thank one another for their leadership.
For the school district to do what they did so quickly, it made me feel so much better.
So quickly? They had your kids sit at home for 2 days, and now you're going to somebody else's school.
Well, that's some of the kids. Some of the kids are just being sent home with worksheets.
she admits she's ready for more normal times.
What is your hope on when they go back to the other school?
Can I be honest?
Sure.
I hope that we go back on Monday
It's not happening.
No.
because it's not the same.
J.R. Stone, ABC 7 News.
There's the latest from Solano County's gem, Vallejo.
Somebody give that girl a nickel so she can throw it into a wishing well.
Somebody robbed our school.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Johnny, sometimes we get requests for drops at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, and I'll send you an MP3 of any drop that you like from this show. Why not? They're free, and I didn't invent them. They're just drops from the news or politicians. Roberto writes in and says, hey, I need a soundbite fix. Can you get me the Reseda Girls?
I know.
The Wild Wild West Oakland Man.
It's Wild Wild West out here.
And the Vallejo Crime Lady.
What are some of your concerns?
Crime.
Wow, he got the combo platter.
Southern California, the Bay Area, and Vallejo.
Well, yesterday we talked about one county in the state of California where officials were asking questions from the Attorney General, Mr. Bucketful of Cliches himself, Rob Bonta, about what to do. Because California is a sanctuary state, but if they comply with state law as a sanctuary state, they would be violating federal law, and they would be at risk of the feds pulling federal dollars out of their community. Rob Bonta didn't really have any kind of answer that made sense, but that's not the only locale that's wrestling with those issues. Some of them are proud sanctuary cities in a sanctuary state, including San Francisco.
For more on the leaders of San Francisco reiterating and strengthening their sanctuary status, here's KGO.
While San Francisco city leaders and community advocates joined forces to reinstate the city's commitment to being a sanctuary city.
ABC 7 News.
Even from the Honduran drug dealers that plague the Tenderloin.
Well, that would be separating families.
ABC 7 News reporter Luz Pena has the latest on what the city's planning to do to respond to ICE agents.
As raids across the country intensify, San Francisco city officials are making their stance clear.
First and foremost, we are a sanctuary city.
In 1989, San Francisco passed the City and County of Refuge Ordinance, or Sanctuary Ordinance. Today, the Board of Supervisors are voting to reaffirm this.
San Francisco.
So, symbolism.
I would love to be a member of a city council in a town in Utah and then say, we're a sanctuary city from the EPA. We will not allow the EPA to enforce any of their regulations in our town. We will not comply with the EPA, and see how far you go. In any other context, you'd be in trouble.
I bet the city of Duarte wishes they could do that right now.
Firm
this.
No
kidding.
Firm this.
San Francisco, we value our immigrant communities.
Standing.
Mr. Monotone himself, the new mayor, Daniel Lurie.
Even when you improve at the city level, and he's better than London Breed, he's still not great.
San Francisco, we value our immigrant communities.
Standing next to some of the most influential leaders of the city, San Francisco City Attorney David Chu explained what this means.
Our policy simply says you cannot deputize local law enforcement as ICE agents.
Can you tell federal law enforcement when you arrest a Honduran drug dealer who was giving fentanyl to kids?
Oh, they don't want that guy shipped out of the country.
With scarce resources, we have to prioritize those resources to fight crime, not break up families.
According to the Migration Policy Institute, in 2019, there were an estimated 43,000 people in the city counted as unauthorized population. It's unclear how much of the population changed in the years following the pandemic. But as immigration raids loom, local law enforcement leaders highlighted their positions.
The San Francisco Police Department.
That's the police chief.
The San Francisco Police Department does not assist in immigration raids.
My office is unique in that we are, through the ordinance, the only office that may contact federal immigration officials if they ask when a serious or violent felon is leaving our custody.
Well, that's a little different.
Just slightly.
San Francisco District Attorney Brooke.
We don't have that in L.A.
San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins urging the immigrant community to report any crimes without fear.
Of course, this is the argument why they need sanctuary cities. If we don't have sanctuary cities, the victims of crime won't report crime. And then when you saw the city of LA wanting to finally officially become a sanctuary city, even though we've had Special Order 40 here going back to the 70s, you had Ulysses and Hugo saying, we need this because the immigrant community doesn't report crime.
So it's my understanding that if these local communities do not participate with ICE at finding these criminal aliens, which is who they're going after right now, and helping in the process of deporting them, that what the federal agents are going to do is just show up to the person's house on their own. And if there's someone in the house with them who's also here illegally, they go home too. So if you were concerned about not breaking up families and keeping people in the country who aren't breaking the law, then in theory, wouldn't you jump at the opportunity to get rid of the fentanyl dealer so everyone else who's living with the fentanyl dealer doesn't get deported too?
Well, that's why as soon as you examine what this policy means, it's nonsense.
My office is doing nothing in coordination with any federal immigration enforcement whatsoever, that you are safe to come forward and that we will protect our victims and witnesses.
The Trump administration has been vocal about sanctuary cities, recently prompting federal prosecutors to investigate officials who interfere with immigration enforcement operations and threatening them with criminal charges.
If he chooses to violate the rule of law, we will meet him in court.
In San Francisco, Luz Peña, ABC 7 News.
The feds don't even have to go that far. They can just stop sending federal aid when it comes to things like funding law enforcement or other grants if cities don't want to comply with federal law.
And they seem to mean business. So if the cities will not comply with the feds, I have a feeling some of them are going to see their federal dollars cut off.